Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
WisconsinEye coverage of the 2018 elections continues. We're at the Green Bay Public Library. We're interviewing Tim Ramthun of Campbellsport. He's a Republican candidate in the 59th Assembly District. Tim, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
I appreciate that. Let me know what you think is the top issue in the 59th Assembly District in this election cycle.
It's hard to say one thing. I think taxes is a huge issue. We had a $76.1 billion budget passed last fall, and the prior session was $68.4 billion. So that's a $7 billion, $700 swing in operating our state. And when you have an increase in budget costs, you're going to have an increase in taxes. And I hear it on the campaign trail. Taxes is probably a big issue. Protecting the preborn is also a big thing as well. It's hard to answer one thing, but I would focus on taxes because that tells me there's inefficiencies in a lot of areas, and we got to do things better as a legislative body.
Yes, on your website you say one of your themes is cost justification in all matters. Tie that back to the tax issue. Is there any tax you would move to cut, sir?
Well, I'm not sure specifically what type of tax I would push to cut. I think that when you have an increase in costs to run our state, there's additional burden that's put onto the people of the state. Wisconsin is ranked in the top 10 in the country for states in their tax rates, and I want to get off that list. So I want to have a discussion and have debate on what's the best thing to do to help mitigate the burden of taxes on our citizens.
One of the big drivers in our, one of the big expenses is what we spend on K-12 schools. Do we spend enough on K-12 schools, Mr. Ram?
Well, I think there's a problem with the formula factors, and I'm really grateful that Joel Kitchens and Senator Luther Olson are looking into that through the Blue Ribbon Commission. I did go to one hearing. I watch them on your program too to keep abreast of what's coming out. I look forward to being part of the discussion to come up with decisions. The question is, do we do enough for schools? I think we have to do a couple of things. Right now, the current formula factors have an unfair and unbalanced approach. There's 423 districts, and about 2/3 of them are challenged every year. The other thing I'm concerned about is the time in which the money is dispensed to the schools. It comes in October. We need to get that back to July because it causes districts like my Kewaskum School District that I'm a board member on to do short-term borrowing just to make up the money they need to operate, and then they pay it back once they get the funds back. So there's a timing issue for the funds disbursement. There's the amount of money we give to the schools that needs to be addressed. Foundation plan, I think I heard recently about, that embraces enrollment numbers. I'm a little apprehensive about embracing enrollment numbers because they fluctuate so much, and you have such a change in budget expectation year after year. I'd like to see things a little flatter. So that's my response to the question.
The choice and charter program have been expanded in Wisconsin in recent years. Do you support the expansion of the choice program? It's now statewide, started in Milwaukee, Racine.
Yes.
Now statewide?
Yes, I always was in favor of choice. I think parents should have a right to be able to put their child where they feel they need to. The voucher costs came up after the choice was announced. That was a little bit of a surprise. I didn't realize the districts would be charged for the vouchers from their respective districts. But I do, yeah, I think it's a good thing. Charters and private and parochial schools, however, don't have the same governance requirements that public schools do, so there's a disparity on how they're governed, if you would, and the oversight. And I think if they're going to be eligible for federal and state funding, there should be a better oversight program over charter, private, and parochial schools as well.
School boards and local governments have been operating under levy limits that I think of since about 2006. Yeah, is it time to loosen those levy limits?
Well, to arbitrarily loosen levy limits is asking for a tax increase. And so on the surface, I'm like, wow, why did we put a stop, or why did we implement levy limits back in '05, I think it was, with Governor Doyle? I don't know what the context of the situation was then, but there must have been a problem that they said you can't leave these people out of control because they'll raise the taxes. So to turn it back on arbitrarily I'm apprehensive about that, but I do think we have to look at what that caused, because if I place myself in a municipality and I'm trying to govern and do things that particular area needs work in, and I'm hamstrung with funds to be able to do the job, they're going to have quality issues, they're going to have service issues. So we might be creating another problem by having levy limits in place. So I'd like to see what middle ground is. And again, being at the table, having the discussion, having the debate, understanding the pros and cons. That's what I do in the private sector now, and I'd love to do it for this issue as well.
A couple questions on healthcare. Healthcare in the rural areas. Are rural areas in Wisconsin seeing a declining, an older population, young people leaving, more and more healthcare provided by Medicare and Medicaid? Thoughts on how to deal with healthcare in the rural areas, sir?
Well, it's a problem with distance and time factors. I think there's an underserved situation by the medical industry for the rural because of those conditions. There aren't facilities close enough by. So conversely speaking, with the urban groups, you have more people in areas where perhaps more unsanitary situations happen, so there's more disease, there's more chronic infections, but there's more centers. So we have a population issue with the urban thing, and we have less of a choice for the rural. I think we have to do something more and better for the rural population. I think there's an issue there. Insurance costs as well are driving a lot of the problems with the situation overall. So healthcare costs, accessibility, which is limited now for rural, needs to be addressed.
Does state government have a role in retaining and recruiting healthcare providers statewide? Because I'm sure as you campaign, you've heard of the shortages as our medical professionals get older. Does state government have a role in making sure that we have future healthcare professionals?
Well, I think, and that's the first time I've ever been asked that question. I think making it an attractive environment, it's almost like putting a job posting out. We've got this condition, we've got this situation, and we have the best of medical profession can offer. I think it will help draw. So I think there is some level of participation the state can definitely play in attracting. It's like job creation. It's just specific to the medical industry. But
the impasse over how to pay for our highways. What are your thoughts on how to solve it, sir?
Oh, another good question. This is one of those things that we've been kicking the can down the road for quite a long time. Department of Transportation, $1.9 billion budget annually. It's funded primarily from the fuel tax, which is locked at 30.9 cents per gallon. Mm-hmm. There is the registration, vehicle registration, other revenue generator, which is what, average $75, $80 per car.
Yes.
The other 10% comes from federal aids. If indexing, which allowed for the adjustment to inflation, was turned off in 2005. And had we not turned it off, the tax rate for the per gallon now would be 37.4 cents. That's a 6.5 cent gallon swing. Not a whole lot over the period of 13 years, but every gallon of gas creates $33.4 million in revenue for the state. So I think over the course of time, I'm getting to your question by the way, over the course of time, we lost $1.2 billion in aid because indexing was turned off. But that's the tax side of the question. You know, if we say put indexing back on and will it jump up to 37.4 cents per gallon? I don't know, but that adds a tax. Some people are saying, even though they're conservative, and my district's conservative, we're okay with paying a little bit more because we want our roads repaired. My focus would be more on the Department of Transportation. Dave Ross is the new director there now, running point, and I'm hearing really good things about him. He's focused on efficiency and raising the bar, and that's what I do too in my private sector life. I'd like to look at their overall budget. I'd like to look at how they plan for their budget. I'd like to look at the costs within their budget, and I'd like to look at the effective prevailing wage and what it might be doing to drive up expenditures on the delivery of the DOT services before I start talking about turning indexing back on and raising taxes for the gas. Maybe we got to do both. I don't know, but I do know one thing: the roads in Wisconsin are deteriorating rapidly, and we have a little bit of a crisis coming here with the winters and the summers and the hot and the cold. Pretty soon, you can't just repair roads anymore. You're going to have to tear them down to gravel and rebuild them. So the costs are going to go through the roof. So time's against us. Cost issues are a huge concern. Doing nothing is not acceptable. We have to do something. And delaying projects longer just causes them to go through the roof when we do finally get to them. And here's one example, and then I'm done. The Highway 23 project from 151 to Plymouth, 19 miles, that was bid out about 8 years ago, roughly, and it was a $1 million project. Now they're talking $10 million. So the price of nonconformance and waiting is, we just made our cost 10 times. Waiting is not an option either. So I look to, again, get in, be assertive with what we have, where we want to be, how we're going to get there, what are the options. Let's have a discussion, let's take some action, and start maybe incrementally getting something done instead of, well, we're not really sure what to do, and then more time gets wasted and the people lose out.
Just to clarify, there's a lot of debate in the Capitol on tolling. You don't sound like you're a fan of tolling.
No, not on the surface. Wouldn't mind having a discussion, but I'd rather talk about the other elements I touched on before, talk about tolling. In
light of some of the shootings, the tragic shootings in schools, do you support any changes in Wisconsin gun laws?
Well, to schools specifically, I know the incumbent for the seat right now, Mr. Kremer, had put out an expression to ask the question, which is what I liked about it. AB 1026 is the current bill that didn't see the floor during the summer special session, and I wish it would have, to allow for concealed carry choice to be on school grounds. I'm not in favor of teachers carrying weapons of any kind, but I do like the idea of asking the question about administration and support staff so that we could protect students in schools. And you won't know who's got them, so that it's a whole deterrent factor, I think, is well played if we allow for the question. And then the local districts can say, no, we don't want to do that. That's fine. That's the local control. That's the power of school boards and local government. But to have the state be in the way right now to allow it at nothing at all, I don't think that's acceptable. Changes in gun laws, I'm a pro-Second Amendment guy, and more discussion, more debate. I think the automatic weapons discussion might be something worthwhile because that's usually what is being used. But anyway, that's all I have to say on that.
On UW system budgeting, we're in our 6th year of a tuition freeze for resident undergrad. Should that freeze be extended into a 7th and 8th year in the next state budget?
Well, on the surface, I'm going to say yes. I know there's it's a $6 billion. We've got what 13 universities.
13 4-year, 13
4-year, and then 13 freshman soft, and then we've got the UW extension. So we're populated very well, and within that group of 13 in extension, we've got a $6 billion budget. There's $1 billion in aid. There's $1.5 in grants. 170,000 kids attend these facilities every year. It seems to be working okay. We got $138.5 million coming into their expense options here. I think next month in July it opens up. But that's performance-based, and I do like the performance-based perspective. It's about accountability. It's about justification. So I'm thinking that the freeze might need to be extended another couple of years.
Okay. Do we need to build a new prison? The prison in Green Bay and Waupun were built in the 1800s. We're closing the juvenile prisons. Do we need a new state prison?
Well, this is an interesting question for me. I'm not real close to what's going on with our corrections department. However, one of the first things I think of when you ask the question is, what do we have for a population of correctional facilities in the state now, and are they used to their capacity? So there's a capacity question I'd want to get answered first. Then we've got the age issue, and I have that same problem with school districts. They got to rebuild stuff after 30, 40 years. I need to know more information about how many people we have currently in our facilities and what the costs are, what the location would be, but on the surface it sounds like we definitely want to look into that. There is one gentleman, I'll just mention his first name, from the Campbellsport area. His name is Jim. He works at a correctional facility, and he wants to get together with me real quick to talk about a lot of areas that they can improve wasteful spending on. So there's an inside perspective on how we can help reduce costs, and I would want to talk to him first before I talked about building a new.
You support the $2.85 billion in state tax incentives to the Foxconn development, potential development?
I thought it was higher than that.
It is when you add the local and then the transportation. It's then over $4 billion. Is that a wise investment?
Well, and another great question. My good friend, who's no longer with us, Rep. Bob Gannon from the 58th, Bob was my friend, and I respected him. He was a businessman. He was a very conservative guy, too. And he voted yes for this. And so on the surface, had I been in the chair, because I wasn't, and had I been in the room to hear all the information, and I wasn't, I probably would have said yes, too. I would tell you, though, that the precedent-setting, historic setting events that took place to get this to happen initially concerned me because I thought it would create a problem for other companies wanting us to do the same thing. And I don't think Wisconsin can afford to shell out, $3-4 billion for tax incentives for any business. It doesn't appear to be happening, but and then I was also concerned about the amount of water that they wanted to pull out of Lake Michigan. It was 7 million gallons a day.
Yes.
But then I heard that there's going to be recycled water and it's going to be put back. So it's not like we're tapping total 7 million. Most of it's going back. So I feel better about that too. But on the surface, I'm sorry to be scenic, but it's a big deal. I think when job creation, job training, and job retention is one of your priority issues, which it is for me in this state, if you have an opportunity to bring in something as big as Foxconn and with 13,000 plus jobs, you almost got to take the risk. You almost got to try this to see if it works. If it does work, it'll be a really good thing, and I think it has a good chance to work. If it fails, of course, it'll be a really bad thing. But in private sector business, you have to take risk once in a while. Okay. And hope it comes to fruition. And if the people did their homework right, this could be a huge deal for our state.
Two final questions.
Yes,
do you support either medical marijuana or legalizing recreational marijuana?
Medical is legal in 29 states. Wisconsin's not part of that, but they do have allowable use under restricted terms right now. I support continuance of restricted terms in Wisconsin for medical. I do not support legalizing recreational. That's a whole different story, and I know there's some problems occurring in Colorado now from when they did it a couple years ago, and I would like to have more discussion on that, but I'll go with the medical and stop there.
Final question, do you want to highlight differences between you and your opponent in the August 14th primary?
Another great question, a good one to end on. I'm in this race because I want the people of my district to have the best choice possible to put the right person in the role at the right time. And when I talk to people who know me and know of me, the one word that comes up that defines me pretty well, and it's the word depth. Depth of experience, depth of capability, depth of passion, depth of leadership skills. My character and my judgment is sound, and I get things done. And so when I look at the field, and I'm glad there's candidates running, people who want to serve, good thing, it's admirable. Having choice to vote on, great thing for the people. What they need to do is the work to see who's bringing the most to the table, who's going to get it done. I can guarantee you I will inspire and influence this assembly to raise its collective bar to do more for the people than they've ever done before. That's why I'm in this race. And whatever it takes for them, the people. I don't work for establishment. I don't work for hidden agenda. I don't work for special interest. I work for the people, of, by, and for the people. That's why I'm doing this. And if I get in, we're going to be talking a lot because I'm going to have a lot of things I'll be working on. I look forward to it.
Thank you. Tim Ramthun of Campbellsport is a Republican candidate in the 59th Assembly District. The primary is August 14th. Tim, thanks for visiting with WisconsinEye.
I'm honored. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.